Most folks picture mushroom clouds and paratroopers when they think about global conflict. But if WWIII hits rural America, it starts quietly. It begins with the local gas station taking only cash. Feed trucks stop showing up, the power grid flickers off, and the county sheriff stops answering calls. That is when you realize a safe full of expensive tactical rifles will not save you. A prolonged crisis does not care about price tags. You do not need a random collection of safe queens. You need a functional rural survival battery. A tight set of tools where every firearm has a non-negotiable job. Keeping meat in the freezer, keeping the barn secure, walking the fence line, and keeping your family breathing when desperation changes people. We are looking at 5 distinct roles and the exact guns that fill them best. Let us start with the one most folks overlook entirely, but the one that will do the daily work of keeping your family alive. Coming in at number 5 is a choice that makes the tactical crowd roll their eyes, but it is the exact tool that will keep your family fed when the supply trucks stop running. We are talking about the Marlin Model. When most people hear that global conflict has reached rural America, they immediately grab the biggest caliber in the safe. But that is a mistake born from movies, not reality. If the grid is down for months, your biggest daily threat is not a foreign army. It is an empty stomach. You cannot shoot a squirrel or a rabbit with a large caliber rifle without destroying the meat, and you certainly cannot do it quietly. The Marlin Model 60 and 22 long rifle solves the quiet, daily problem of harvesting small game without echoing across the valley and letting everyone know exactly where you are and what you have. From an engineering standpoint, what makes the Model 60 the right answer for a long-term crisis is actually the very thing some folks complain about today. It uses a tubular magazine holding 14 or 15 rounds rather than a detachable box magazine like some modern alternatives. Now, in a normal world, popping in a fresh box magazine is faster at the range. But in a collapsed supply chain scenario, a box magazine is just a piece of plastic you can easily lose in the brush. If you lose the magazine on a modern rimfire, you have a cumbersome single-shot rifle. The Marlin's tube is built right into the barrel assembly. You cannot drop it in the mud and leave it behind. As long as you have the rifle and a pocket full of cheap rimfire ammo, you have a working system. The practical consequence of this is true independence. You can stockpile 5,000 rounds of 22 long rifle in a single small ammo can. It takes up no space, it weighs almost nothing, and it allows you to maintain the daily rhythm of bringing in calories for your family. But we have to talk about the limitation here, because this is where the trust before hype rule kicks in. The Marlin Model 60 is a food getter, not a man stopper. Yes, a 22 can be lethal, but it has no real immediate stopping power. If you are dealing with a desperate trespasser who has already decided to kick your door in, the 22 is going to leave you severely outgunned. Furthermore, the action gets gritty if you run hundreds of rounds of cheap lead nose ammo without wiping it down. It is a tool for a specific job, and it does that job perfectly, but it cannot step outside of its lane. You are looking at a rifle that has been out of production for a bit, but you can easily find them on the used market for anywhere from $150 to $250, depending on the condition. That covers the stew pot, but what happens when the threat isn't dinner, and it is actively trying to get into your barn? That brings us to number 4, the Remington 870 12-gauge shotgun. If the Marlin is for the quiet mornings in the woods, the 870 is for the pitch-black night when the dog starts barking at the barn and you know it is not a raccoon. When we talk about how things fall apart in rural areas, we have to talk about the breakdown of local law enforcement. When the county sheriff is overwhelmed and the emergency lines just ring endlessly, you become the only law on your property. For close range, raw, undisputed stopping power around your home and outbuildings, the pump-action 12-gauge remains the undisputed king. You cannot use a rimfire for real defense, and you do not want to use a high-velocity rifle inside a metal barn where over-penetration could kill your own livestock or damage your tractor. The 870 fills that gap with absolute authority. Mechanically, the brilliance of the Remington 870 lies in its twin action bars and its massive steel receiver. We see a lot of modern shooters leaning towards semi-automatic shotguns, and those are fine when you have a clean workbench and plenty of specialized lubricating oil. But when conditions go bad, when the gun is bouncing around in the bed of a side-by-side, getting covered in farm dust, chaff, and moisture, semi-autos can get notoriously finicky. A pump action like the 870 runs on your physical force. If it gets a little dirty, you just rack it harder. It handles birdshot for upland game, buckshot for two-legged threats, and heavy slugs if you need to drop a dangerous animal or stop a vehicle engine block. The practical consequence is total versatility. It is the single most adaptable firearm you can own for the homestead. But we have to look at the trade-offs because the 12 gauge is not a magic wand. The biggest issue is the recoil and the weight of the ammunition. A 12 gauge kicks hard, and for older shoulders or smaller family members, it can be downright punishing to practice with. On top of that, 12 gauge shells are heavily weighted and bulky. You cannot easily throw 100 rounds in your pockets and walk the property. It is a localized tool. It is meant to stay near the door, in the truck, or in the barn. It is also completely limited by distance. Beyond 50 to 75 yards, even with slugs, its effectiveness drops off a cliff. It is the ultimate tool for controlling the immediate 50 yards around your home, but it cannot reach out and touch a problem before it gets close. You can pick up a new base model 870 for around $400 to $500, or find a reliable used police Magnum or older Wingmaster for around $350. Now, before we look at the next gun, I want you to think about what happens when the threat isn't at your front door yet, but sitting out on your property line, testing your boundaries, and you realize neither the .22 nor the shotgun has the reach to do anything about it. This is where we hit number 3, and it is a choice that usually starts arguments, but it is deeply rooted in the reality of rural living. We are talking about the Winchester Model 94 from 3030. When crisis stretches from weeks into months, you cannot spend your whole life locked inside the house. You have to check the fence lines, repair the water lines, feed the livestock, and keep the property running. You need a rifle that travels easily over long distances, packs enough punch to drop a winter deer or stop a medium-range threat. But here is the critical part. It cannot make you look like a target. In a grid-down situation, paranoia and tension are incredibly high. If you are walking your property line holding an all-black tactical rifle with lasers, lights, and modern optics hanging off it, nervous neighbors or panicked travelers might see you as an active paramilitary threat, or they might think you have high-value gear worth stealing. The Winchester 94 just looks like Grandpa's old deer rifle. It is completely non-threatening to the eye, but devastatingly effective in practice. From an engineering perspective, the lever action is a masterpiece of flat-sided simplicity. It carries in the hand naturally, balances perfectly at the receiver, and slides into a tractor scabbard better than almost any modern rifle with an extended magazine. The action is fully enclosed, keeping out the worst of the mud, snow, and farm debris. The 3030 cartridge has probably put more venison on American tables than any other. Round in history, and it hits with a heavy blunt force that easily handles any four-legged or two-legged threat out to 150 or 200 yards. Ammo is heavy, but it is also everywhere. Almost every hardware store and gas station in rural America has a dusty box of 30 sitting on a shelf. The practical consequence of this design is that you have a highly capable, mid-range patrol rifle that fits the rural landscape perfectly. It is the tool for keeping the land secure while still looking like a regular farmer or rancher just going about their chores. But the Winchester 94 brings some very real limitations that we have to be honest about before we crown it the ultimate survival gun. It is an older, slower system. Loading rounds through the side spring gate one at a time takes practice. It can pinch cold fingers, and it takes time. The tubular magazine only holds 6 or 7 rounds depending on the barrel length. If you find yourself facing a coordinated group of desperate looters in a high-volume firefight, the 94 is going to run dry quickly, and you will be struggling to thumb cartridges into the gate while under massive stress. Furthermore, mounting modern optics on a traditional top-ejecting 94 is a miserable headache, meaning you are mostly relying on buckhorn iron sights. For older eyes, that can be a real challenge, especially in low-light conditions at dawn and dusk. It is a phenomenal rifle for daily property maintenance and keeping a low profile, but it has a very clear ceiling. A solid used Winchester 94 will run you anywhere from $800 to $1,200, depending on the year of manufacture and the condition. Before we go higher, I want to know where you stand on this. Would you trust the older proven design, or would you still take the newer platform if things got ugly? Up to this point, we have been talking about long guns that make sense individually. Rifles and shotguns are fantastic tools when you know trouble is coming, or when you are actively patrolling the property line at dusk. But the reality of a collapsed world is that life still has to happen, and the next part of this ranking changes everything. We are no longer talking about what works when you are ready. We are talking about what keeps working when you are caught off guard. You cannot always sling a rifle over your shoulder. When you are under the tractor changing the oil, when you are wrestling a calf in the mud, or when you are just carrying heavy bags of feed from the truck to the barn, a long gun gets set down. It gets leaned against a wall. Because it is heavy and awkward, human nature dictates that you will eventually take it off to get your work done. And in a lawless environment, The moment you are separated from your rifle is the exact moment desperate people will take advantage of your distraction. Being 20 feet away from your rifle when a truck speeds up your driveway might as well be 20 miles. That brings us to number 2, the SIG Sauer P320 in 9mm. When you realize the county sheriff is no longer coming and the emergency lines are dead, your personal security becomes a 24-hour-a-day job. The sidearm on your belt becomes the most important tool you own, not because it has the most stopping power, but because it is the only gun that is actually on your person when a sudden threat appears. We are looking at the P320 specifically because of a brilliant piece of engineering that solves a massive problem in a long-term crisis. The actual serialized part of the firearm is the internal stainless steel fire control unit. The grip module is just a piece of molded polymer. Why does that matter to a rural gunner trying to survive a Third World War? Because in a grid-down situation, bodies change and needs change. If you lose 40 pounds from working hard and eating less, or if you need to hand this pistol off to a spouse or a teenager who has much smaller hands, you do not need to scour the county for a whole new gun. You can swap the internal chassis into a smaller grip module in about 30 seconds. It is the most adaptable handgun system on the market today. On top of that, it is a striker-fired 9mm holding 15 to 17 rounds depending on the frame size you choose. In a world where supply chains are completely dead, 9mm is the single most common centerfire pistol cartridge in the country. If you have to barter for ammunition or scavenge it from abandoned vehicles, you will find 9mm everywhere. The polymer frame does not care if you sweat on it all day while fixing a fence in the July heat. It is a working man's tool designed to bounce around in a holster, get covered in farm dust, and still go bang every single time you pull the trigger. Compared to an old heavy steel 1911 with a 7-round magazine, the P320 gives you more than double the capacity at a fraction of the weight, which is a massive deal when you are wearing it on your hip from sunup to sundown. It is a fighting pistol that gives you enough sustained firepower to handle multiple threats who might be trying to catch you off guard near the wood pile. But we have to look at the harsh truth of handguns because this is where tactical hype gets people killed. A 9mm pistol is not a magic death ray. It is just a tool for poking relatively small holes in things. It does not have the hydrostatic shock or the devastating kinetic energy of a rifle or a 12-gauge shotgun. If you are facing an attacker wearing heavy winter clothing or someone fueled by adrenaline and desperation, a pistol round might not stop them immediately even with a solid hit to center mass. Furthermore, handguns are inherently difficult to shoot accurately under extreme stress, and your effective range is realistically limited to 20 or 30 yards unless you are an exceptional marksman. The P320 is a defensive bridge. Its entire purpose in a rural survival battery is to keep you alive just long enough to fight your way back to where you left your rifle. If you try to clear your property or actively hunt down an armed threat with just a handgun, you are making a fatal mistake. You can find a standard SIG Sauer P320 sitting at a retail price of around $500 to $600, with a massive used market offering them for even less. That sidearm keeps you breathing during a sudden ambush. But what happens when the threat is not a surprise, but a coordinated, overwhelming problem that demands an absolute, definitive answer? This brings us to number 1. When the power grid is a distant memory, when the desperate elements of society start pushing out from the suburbs into the rural counties looking for resources, and when keeping your family alive requires more than just a warning shot. We are talking about the Smith & Wesson M&P15 Sport II. This is the ultimate definitive answer for a prolonged crisis. Everything we have talked about so far has a specific niche. The 22 feeds your family. The shotgun secures the barn at close range. The lever action patrols the fence line. The pistol gets you out of a sudden jam. But when a group of 4 desperate, organized looters stops their truck at the end of your driveway and decides that your winter food supply belongs to them, none of those other tools have the capacity, the range, or the overwhelming volume of fire to guarantee your survival. In a true collapse, you need a primary fighting rifle, and the AR-15 platform is the undisputed king of American logistics. We are specifically looking at the M&P15 Sport II because it represents the perfect intersection of blue-collar affordability and uncompromising reliability. You do not need a $3,000 boutique tactical rifle built for special forces operators. You need a workhorse that simply runs. From an engineering standpoint, this rifle operates on a direct impingement gas system firing the 5.56 NATO cartridge. It features a forged aluminum upper and lower receiver, a hardened bolt carrier group, and a barrel with a 1 in 9 twist rate that stabilizes the most common 55-grain ammunition perfectly. It comes with a forward assist and a dust cover, keeping debris out of the action when you are moving through heavy brush. But the real genius of placing this rifle at the #1 spot is not just how it shoots. It is about what happens when it eventually breaks. In a rural survival scenario that lasts for years, mechanical things will inevitably fail. If the extractor snaps on a proprietary European rifle, you now own a very expensive club. But if a spring breaks on the Smith & Wesson, you can replace it in 2 minutes on your kitchen table. The AR-15 is the small block Chevy of the firearms world. Every single part, from the firing pin to the buffer spring, is standardized across the industry. There are literally millions of spare parts floating around the United States right now. You can scavenge, barter, or stockpile parts for pennies on the dollar. It takes standard Stanag magazines, which are the most universally available rifle magazines on the planet. If you are stockpiling an obscure caliber because it has slightly better ballistic coefficients on a paper chart, you are making a massive tactical error for a rural survival situation. When your personal supply runs dry, you cannot go to the local hardware store and find exotic ammunition, but you will find 5.56. The practical consequence of this system is that it empowers a single defender to hold their ground against multiple threats. The recoil is so incredibly minimal that you can easily train an older family member, a spouse, or a teenager to shoot it effectively in a single afternoon. It is lightweight, ergonomic, and it allows you to mount a simple red dot sight and a reliable
How about a few
light,
more?
giving you a massive advantage in low-light situations where most home defense encounters actually happen. Compared to the Winchester lever action we looked at earlier, the M&P15 gives you 30 rounds of standard capacity, lightning-fast reloads, and modern optics capability that does not require perfectly clear vision to use. It takes the guesswork out of defending your land. But even the king of survival rifles has limitations that we have to talk about with absolute honesty. The 5.6 cartridge relies heavily on blistering velocity to tumble and fragment inside a target. If you chop the barrel down to a short pistol length, or if you are trying to shoot past 400 yards, the round loses that devastating terminal ballistics edge and starts acting like an ice pick. Furthermore, direct impingement rifles run dirty by design. They blow carbon directly back into the receiver action. While the Smith & Wesson will run dry for a surprisingly long time, it does require regular lubrication to stay perfectly reliable, meaning you need to stock up on good gun oil and actually maintain your gear. Finally, the noise is a serious ownership concern that many people overlook. Firing a 5.6 indoors without a suppressor is absolutely deafening. It produces a massive concussive blast that can disorient you and cause permanent hearing damage, which is a terrible trade-off if you are trying to communicate with your family during a midnight break-in. You have to plan around the noise, either with electronic hearing protection staged with the rifle, or by recognizing the physical toll it will take in an emergency. The Smith & Wesson M&P15 Sport II carries a street price of around $700 to $800, delivering an incredible amount of insurance for the cost of a mid-range appliance. We started this by looking at how a global conflict really impacts the countryside. It is not about cinematic battles. It is about the quiet, terrifying collapse of everything you rely on. Building a functional rural survival battery is about covering your bases when nobody is coming to help. The 22 keeps your family fed without drawing attention. The pump-action 12-gauge locks down the barn with absolute authority. The 30-30 lever action lets you patrol the property line while maintaining a low profile. The striker-fired 9mm stays on your hip, so you are never caught empty-handed during your daily chores. And when the worst of a collapsed society comes rolling up your driveway, the AR-15 gives you the standardized firepower to hold your ground. The question is not whether you have enough guns in the safe. The real question is whether the firearms you own actually solve the practical problems you will face when the power goes out and stays out. Which of these 5 critical roles is your safe currently missing? If you're watching from the living room couch, pull out your phone, open up the YouTube app, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Gunforge signing off.